It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voice of Reason podcast. I hope everyone is having a wonderful, wonderful day here. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are going to be discussing what colleges don't want to, and that's called hate speech against Jews. Can't do it.
Can't do
unless you go to Harvard. You'll get a full ride.
Hey, Harvard, Penn, or MIT. Then you're good. Then you're set.
You're set. Well, gentlemen,
I
said, this is the voice.
And what's your name's Yay, too. I mean, they tried to cancel him.
Yeah.
But look at him now.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips. As always, I'm joined alongside the two best co-hosts in the world, Mr. Andrew Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how we do today?
Good. I just wanted to share a couple of photos real quick, Sean, if I could. I wanted you guys to be able to see these. Hold on a second here. I want to be able to, and you'll be able to see them. Just if you're looking. First of all, I want to bring up a photo from last week's Chiefs Chiefs and Packers game. We had this situation go on. After the game, we were able to decide. Hey, look, there we go. Yeah, the most valuable player of the game. So there you go. And he was able to do the Lambeau leap. And then, of course, I got to kill Santa Claus yesterday by sitting my enormously large tuchus on his lap. And,
That was a cool, funny picture.
Yeah, so, but I wanted just to be able to share both of those, photos for the fans to be able to see those and, just to express what I went through this week, so.
Oh, I'm not going to comment on your first photo because that's a whole episode in itself.
Yeah, I had to surprise you live on that one. So sorry.
Yeah, but no, and actually, that Santa actually, after the event, went up to my mom who organized the event.
Yeah, she did a great
job.
Great job.
And threw his medical bill because he said that you popped one of his testicles, and so that's going to be coming out of her yearly school budget. So thank you for that.
He was able actually to swallow it back down after it came up through his
chest. You handed it to him.
Said, here you go.
They call that a peanut cluster, around this time of year. So,
well, I think he was a little bit excited. I felt a little, so
a little mistletoe wiggle.
Something like that's what I call this little mistletoe there.
Jack Frost nipping at your chocolate starfish.
Yeah, there you go. No, but this was I tell you what, we were out there yesterday. We had a basketball tournament at school. And there was also, breakfast with Santa, and he was able to do, and that's Pat McGuire, who's very active in our community. He's active with the American Legion there in Clarksville. He does a great job, and he started doing the Santa thing, and he does a lot. So kudos to Julie Phillips for putting together just a magnificent breakfast with Santa thing. It was really good. I'm supposed to pass along greetings from the prosecuting attorney, Alex Ellison. He was there as well. He said to pass along to you gentlemen, greetings and all that good stuff. So, yeah. And thank you for the comments this week. One of our favorite listeners, Martin Hanley, reached out to us this week. And thank you, Martin, for those kind comments that you shared with us this week. That was well appreciated. So, and, I think this is a Voice of Reason first, seeing Travis. We're seeing Travis's car, and thanks for closing the moonroof there too, Travis. That keeps the glare down and everything.
I got you anytime. Yeah, sorry, I'm out and about, man. It's just been a eventful weekend. Newborn stuff, constantly on the go. Her family's in town, so it's just a lot of
running,
a lot of events, stuff going on. Yeah.
And it is obvious, if you haven't picked up now, we actually are recording the show on Sunday today. So when you see this, sorry, but and that's also why, Sean, if you want to explain your Ron Jeremy stash there too,
No, I've decided to do porn. It was a long time coming. With inflation.
What's the name? What's your call sign? And don't say Dirk Diggler.
No. I was trying to think of something cool, but I like to think of it. I go by Thomas the Engine, because I'm the little engine that could.
Good. I knew it. So, I knew it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. No. That's inflation for you. I couldn't buy eggs, so I decided to donate about 10 million of mine every 30 seconds to someone's screen. No, it was drill weekend. So when you protect and serve this great nation, you unfortunately are not allowed to have a beard. And get this though, this is something I actually learned this week that I did not know. The only person that has or organization that has a stricter beard policy, the United States military, is the New York Yankees. How did I not know this?
What?
The New York Yankees. You are not allowed to have a beard if you play for the Yankees.
Are you kidding me?
So if you go and look at the New York Yankees players since the beginning of their inception, none of them have beards. I don't know about mustaches. Mustaches might be allowed, I'm sure. Yes, but no, because I found out because one of their former players was on a radio show and was like, New York is missing out on some top talent because of their beard policy. There's players like that just are like, no, I'm not gonna shave my face, and they decide not to play.
So
New York.
just beards, not mustache though.
I don't know, but it's definitely beards.
Wow.
Let me
wow.
Definitely.
Only beards mustaches are allowed.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Wow. And just those same mustaches are allowed again at Penn, Harvard, and MIT.
No, but it can only be about like this though. You can only have it right that much of it.
Okay, so yes, so although some Yankees players do have the occasional mustache, there is a no facial hair rule imposed across the entire team. Wow. Basically, you can't be a New York Yankee if you want to have a beard.
What about religious purposes? What if they celebrate Yule and
the Yankees aren't going to let you? If you're a Sikh or a Muslim, the Yankees aren't hiring you anyway. That's just that's a given.
If you're a Sikh, you get the New York turban with the NY up here on the turban and everything. And
yeah, that's an unwritten rule of the Yankees. They don't put it on they don't put it in there, but you're not going to see Ahmed swinging for his 64th home run of the year in a New York Yankees uniform. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's
now if you can hit a baseball, we'll gladly take you on the Cardinals. It doesn't matter what background you come from.
Nope.
If you can hit it, or if you can pitch, Cardinals will take you this upcoming season.
I believe that they're reaching out to Clopton Junior Varsity for their next pitching potential, because apparently anything's better than that. So,
no kidding. Adam Wainwright was the Joe Biden of pitchers this last season.
Yes,
it was fun while it lasted, but at 85 years old, you can only throw the ball so hard.
Get the ball across. Yeah, but one other thing before we get started tonight too, which was something that will interest both of you guys. Of course, I'm still trying to broaden my horizons on the fight front, and I caught a interesting documentary this weekend on. I think it's called the Zone Channel. About it was called One Night, and it was about the miracle of Andy Ruiz against Joshua. If you have not seen the documentary, it's called One Night. And as a boxing fan, as I'm trying to grow with my friends here who are huge boxing aficionados, I watched it and I thought it was a well done documentary, and learned a lot about boxers who I didn't know about. And so it was real. I knew the name Ruiz, but I knew him as the chubby boxer, but I didn't know much more about it than that. And great documentary. So, But
yeah, unfortunately, the guy's screwing up his own career now.
Yeah,
But that's okay.
yeah.
Look, hey, when you become Mexico's, heavyweight champion of the world, you're allowed to just, do all the drinking and eating for the next 6 months after that you want to do. All right.
It's not even that. The guy's pricing himself out of fights. He could have fought Wilder, but he wanted like $30 million. Like, dude, you're not. You were a title holder that didn't even defend your belt. You lost it. Like,
yeah. So,
but another topic for another day.
Yeah. Anyway, so tonight's topic, which was on December I believe this was December the 5th. The presidents of Harvard, Penn, and MIT collectively were called before the House Committee on, I believe it was Education, and they were questioned by, of course, the Republican-dominated, which that really doesn't have any bearing on this, but this committee. And there were some interesting things that came out, and what free speech really is, and what free speech can does your university protect certain kinds of speech, and all this is being done during it is, I don't know if it's the in vogue thing to be doing now, because I guess it's okay to start being anti-Semitic again because the Israelis are attacking Palestine, and so it's okay to be anti-Semitic now. I mean, I may be totally off my rocker and politically incorrect there, but I mean, so, and this is stuff that is happening on these campuses. You have anything short of basically a hate rally where they're calling for what Muslims call intifada, which is basically death to all Jews and stuff like that. And so that's kind of what we're going to be looking at tonight. But I wanted to begin this by playing a little bit of a clip from this testimony, and the person who we are going to be looking at, U.S. Representative Elise Stefanik, who is, I believe she's from, well, she is from New York, so one who hasn't been kicked out of New York yet, or been recalled, or been booted. But what we're going to see here is a little bit of her basically addressing these three presidents, and then we'll go from there, and we'll talk about that. So here is from that hearing.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
yes
speech
or
becomes
no?
if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes. And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric. When
And is it
crosses into
anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board. Ms. McGill at Penn.
So there you go, boys. That was quite the exchange. Thoughts right up front before we really dive into this.
I want to kind of hold off on initial thoughts here. Obviously, I'll just say shocking what came out of that testimony there, that questioning. And I'll dive deep into it in a minute, but that's kind of just my first initial thoughts with it. I was pretty surprised when that came out.
John?
Daniel Tosh, stand-up comedian. Many people know him from Tosh.0, which was like a show on Comedy Central. Has a joke that actually has to deal with like questioning pedophiles, where they were like questioning Jerry Sandusky during the Penn State.
Yep.
Like it's a thing out there in Penn, I guess. Where they were interviewing him. It was a point blank question where he's like, "Are you attracted to young boys?" And then he responded with, "Well," and they're like, "If you," and he's like, if there is pause in your answer, that should guarantee you time in prison. Like if there is a so this is a very similar situation. This is not a softball, wafted up, see what they take a swing at question. This is calling for the genocide of a race considered hate speech? And they're like, depends on the context, motherfucker. Like, depends on the context. Like,
what?
Like, this isn't like, so again, another comedian, Louis C.K., has a joke about the word Jew, where he's like, Jew is one of those words that can be just a word, or it can be like a bad word, where it's like, oh yeah, like you could be like, oh, that guy's Jewish, and that's just a sentence. Or it could be, oh, that guy's Jewish. Like, that's context. That is the context of like what a word is. But if you're like, you know what, today sounds like a good day to eradicate the Jews, or if you're like, today is a good day to eradicate the Jews, you don't have to wonder what the context is. They're both awful things to say. So that's why this particular thing is so funny, because you're like, mind you, this was not like they asked the racist janitor, from Penn, like, that, has behind his mop bucket, a slapped on poster of Adolf Hitler. This was the president
in his locker
of the universities. Okay. So like, if you're an 18, 17-year-old Jewish applicant applying to, all these, top schools,
pass,
and
yeah.
if you've been softballing between Harvard, Yale, Penn,
MIT,
any of these other universities,
yeah,
I think you were able to eliminate two rather quickly, due to these president's actions. And if I'm not mistaken, the president of Penn has since resigned.
Well, and
yes,
so
we'll get to that. But yeah.
Well, and I've also got her video. So she releases a video. So the testimony is on. I got my timeline straight now. So the testimony was done on Tuesday. She releases a video statement, which is only like 2 minutes long. I'll play it real quick here in a little bit, and then she resigns Friday. And some of her statements that she made, even in her speech, were just. I'm just really disappointed on the fact that this is a what do you call this is an Ivy League school. Penn is an Ivy League school. This isn't Penn State. This is Penn. Okay. So this is an Ivy League school, and you're making statements about, people shouldn't be punished. Speech isn't just punishable on by itself. And when I hear these people, all you had to say was no. You want to talk about speech? All you had to say was no. And when there was that time when she says, is speech something, is this kind of stuff, is this allowed? And, I think, Sean, I don't know if this was the point you were trying to get at when you were talking about this week, but when you look at the history of some of these colleges throughout the United States and the speech that they have allowed on campus is just, across the last, 5 to 10 years, after certain, police shootings of black men or during, or something that involves some charged issue. And some of these people just get off with these blank checks of just saying whatever they want to, and the administration of a college looking the other way. Speech can have severe ramifications, and I want to point out. So that last year, I had read about this case. This was I'm pretty sure this was 20. No, this was this year. Okay, and I had heard about this case, and I had to look this up, and I'm sure a lot of people have not heard of this case, but Supreme Court case Counterman versus Colorado. Colorado law allowed individuals to be convicted if a reasonable person would perceive their words as threatening, regardless of the speaker's intent. The decision of the Supreme Court ruled that the First Amendment requires the government to show, at a minimum, that the defendant recklessly disregarded a substantial risk that his words could be perceived as threatening. The court holds that a recklessness standard strikes the right balance between free expression and safety, offering enough breathing space for protected speech without sacrificing too many of the benefits of enforcing the laws against true threats. And so, to me, the way I've always explained this, and I explained it to you guys when I had it in class, and we've talked about it on here before. My rights end where another rights of someone else begins. You cannot just have a blank check to say whatever you want to. Now, we have an inflamed situation going on in the world today. We're now, what are we, a month and a half now into this thing in Israel? Is that about how long it's been? A month and a half? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
October, started early October, I believe.
October, yeah, we're probably 2 months.
Right?
We're probably 2 months into this now. And so now as I said before, to me it seems like it's the in vogue thing now to say, well, now we have a just cause and the Israelis are doing something, unspeakable to the Palestinian people, and free Palestine and death to all Jews. I mean, that's what I get from this. And the school, the administrations are turning, okay, from their lack of speaking or their lack of saying is, well, it depends on the context. And I'm with you, Sean. What context do you need? Do you need the smokestacks to start firing up again from shower houses at a concentration camp? Is that the context you need before you can make a ruling against this or stand up against this?
No, I'm with you, because literally the way that the way that she's answering is like, and hey, if those smokestacks do start firing up, it could just be the hot water heater this time. We don't know. We don't know what the plumbing situation is.
It's the yes.
Yeah. So, and that's what's this was not like, in my opinion, which could be very wrong, but I think that in this specific instance with everything that's kind of happening in the world, and especially like a lot of younger college age folks, how many of them are kind of, shaping up and being opinionated, because right now, some of the loudest voices of the the pro-Palestinian crowd are, college age individuals and high school teenagers. So I believe that the conversation had was, this is the president trying to protect their own skin, not trying to have a mass of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters at her doorstep, going like, look, her trying to say, well, it just depends on the context. But the problem was, this was not an open-ended question. This was not a question of, is speech against the Israeli government considered hate speech, or is pro-Palestinian speech on campus considered hate speech? And then that's a no. It's not, because again, like, this is where things are getting muddy, because she was openly asked. Genocide is not an open-ended, context-needed question. Genocide is the eradication of a race. In this particular case, they're talking about the Jews, which is something that has happened before in the past, of a mad dictator set a goal and got a government, not just a group of radicals. He got a government party to move forward. And mind you, again, this was less than 100 years ago. Okay.
Right.
So in this context, there's no context of what is the speech about. This is not a let's say a super far left or a super far right individual saying things like, if, again, for example, let's say if Alex Jones went to go speak at a university, right? And Alex Jones was going to go, remember, he got in a lot of trouble and was banned from a lot of different internet platforms because of what he had to say about the children and the parents of the Sandy Hook shooting. Okay. That is why he was phased away, lost money, was sued for hundreds of millions of dollars, if people remember. But this was not like a guy that was going out, like, this was not Kyle Rittenhouse on a speaking tour at Mizzou going, there's a difference between, like, we need to stand up to certain protesters. We should stand up to Antifa. We should stand up to people that want to destroy our buildings. That is if you wanted to go, what's the context of that? That's an open-ended, that there could be context in that of, like, well, who's he talking about directly? What's he talking about? Who is he talking about? That's an open-ended statement of, we should take a stand. What does he mean by that? That's why Trump is going to trial again, because of his open-ended reaction to the insurrection on January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
But now here's a situation where it's not if someone openly comes to your university and speaks about the genocide of Jewish people, because what if she said, if someone came to your university and spoke about the genocide of Asian people, if someone came to speak about the genocide of Black people, the genocide of white people, the genocide of Hispanic people, I think it would have been an instant yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the presidents in this particular case were worried about upsetting the wrong people, but also just didn't use this thing in their head that's called a fucking brain.
Right.
They didn't use it at all.
No.
And that's why they're in the situation that they're in.
So what I'm hearing here, and maybe you can even elaborate, either one of you can elaborate a little bit more on this. So within the times that we're in, I mean, how much do you think political wokeness and political correctness is playing into this?
I would say big time. I think that's what we're discussing here, in a sense. I mean, what's led to this ideology.
Well, just by what Sean said, not having a brain in your head. At some point, there needs common sense to me, and this is
That's 100%. Yep.
I mean,
where I was going to go with that.
Well, I mean, as a 49-year-old, and I'm not. I mean, I'm older, but I'm not. I still don't consider myself an old man. But from an older generation, as a Gen Xer, when to me, this is common sense. This is something you don't have to be a Jewish. You don't have to even be pro-Jew. But the last thing that representative is saying, you're dehumanizing a group of people when you're not just coming straight out and say, and like what you said, Sean, what if we're talking about taking out a group of Asians or a group of whatever. Okay, so then the the common sense flies right out the window. You're not going to say, well, I believe that this group of people, because they are X, because they're whatever, should be eradicated. Is that going to be tolerated at your school? No, it's not going to be tolerated at school, because you are at what you're allowing to happen is you're because you're afraid of offending people. Oh, I don't want to offend the Palestinians, so we're going to allow, or I don't want to offend the Muslims, so we're going to allow this speech, even though it might be right there on the line. And by using the word in what context? In what context? That still blows my mind. Common sense says you know what context it is. They're calling for the
You
death
know what
of
the
Jews.
question's asking. This isn't an out of the box question. This is a very direct. Are you calling for the killing of an entire race? In my opinion, in theory, that should be like, and as the congresswoman was saying, that's a very obvious yes. And if it's not a yes, then there's some serious moral issues here, and you should not be in the position you are in.
So why aren't you saying, to me, I mean, for what ungodly reason could you not say yes? I mean,
I look at this whole wokeness idea. I hate the term, but we'll use it just because it's relevant.
Yeah.
I think in the pursuit of being, it's this pursuit of being open-minded and this, like, trying to, the idea of using this critical thought of a social issue, or this, I'm using critical thinking in quotations here, but like, I feel like it's almost, in a sense, it's like trying to reinvent the wheel, where they just overthink all these topics into something that makes entirely no sense at all, and it becomes this, like, how do you come to that mentality of, well, what's the context? I don't know how you come to that. I mean, and look, we've covered, we talked about when this war broke out, but there's a lot of history between these two peoples that are fighting right now. There has been atrocities on both sides that have occurred in this. But to call, I don't want to repeat it because I'm just going to keep saying it, but I think that's what it is. It's just overthinking something to the point that it's like trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's where a lot of these woke ideologies fail. It's just like, I don't know what the end goal was for trying to come up with something that's should be pretty obvious. I know maybe it's kind of a too broad of an answer. I hope you guys kind of understand where I was going with that.
No, I am, because you hit the nail on the head of
that's what it seems like. It just seems like it's like
quite literally
overthinking things.
Yeah, everyone. It's because everything, every question always has like a whataboutism. There's always a well, what about this particular case? What about this particular thing? Like it's the same. It's like, you ever hear about like those cases where someone has a family member murdered by someone, but then the family doesn't want the murderer to go to jail because the person that was murdered stood against, people going to prison because the prison system was so bad. And it's like, oh, there's all these cases of, I want to be the biggest ally. Like, I want to be the biggest ally. I want to be the biggest ally. But one thing, Travis, that you had mentioned that I feel like, I can't remember if it was, I'm pretty sure we had a podcast where we talked a little bit about this, but I hate to say I'm right, but I was right about this shit, because I said it a while back, and I think it was on this podcast, but in my opinion, wrong as some people might think it is, and I'm gonna toot my horn. We as humans, with all the fancy shit that we know, we have air conditioning now, we have giant, 1,000-foot in the sky buildings, stainless steel, all this kind of shit. We are no different today than we were 2,000 years ago as the human race. We are not. Why? Because we're talking about Israel and Palestine are at war. Guess what? They've been at war since the dawn of time. Like, it has been regardless of, it's just now there's tanks, now there's drones, now there's all these different things being blown up, where back in the day, it was swords and it was catapults and it was all kinds of shit like that. And it's like, inherently, people, we are no different today as we were back then. We come a little bit farther in the ways of, like, yes, we might say you shouldn't do this, and there are rules against doing things like this. But at the end of the day, bullshit still prevails. Like it's just the way that it is. At least that's how I see it. Because since the dawn of time, people have been at war, and now when we're like in America, we might see things as like, but we have Twitter. Why is there war? Like when I could tweet, no, you shouldn't. I can go on X and get 100,000 likes because I'm like, OMG, blew up a hospital, super fucked up frowny face. But it's like, no one actually cares. Like, you know, there's a million examples of why the internet's not real. And that's where I'm saying, like, no matter how far we come, like, it doesn't matter. We're inherently, people are still going to be people at the end of the day.
Did you guys ever listen to that Lex Fridman interview with Kanye?
Yes.
Back when Kanye was doing the whole like
Yep.
anti-Jews thing. I referencing that podcast because, and obviously Kanye at the time was going after the media companies and blaming these heads of the media who happened to be Jewish, and instead of just going after the individuals, whoever it was that wronged him or was, you know, sidelining his career for, you know, whatever he claims, he was going after the race of these people. And again, you know, Sean said we haven't changed in 2,000 years. We're still blaming an entire race for the actions of a few or some. And Lex really grills him in that. You know, you don't see Lex Fridman get angry very often. He was getting very upset in that episode where he's like, you know, you grow some balls and you go after the man, you go after the individual that is wrong to you. You don't blame an entire race for your troubles. And I can't believe that we continue to have this conversation and that this is a debate, that this is even a debate that's happening. It blows my mind.
Well,
how is it not common sense that it's when are we going to hold individuals accountable as opposed to blaming a group of people, like a whole race of people or an entire country of people? Or everything's always generalized. It's always generalizations.
That's exactly what I was going to go with next. Is that,
and that's dangerous.
It is
a dangerous ideology that has gotten us into wars, that has gotten us into genocides.
Whenever I can,
history repeats itself.
Well, and whatever. So to me, I don't. This is going to seem like a rough, you know, connection here. But I mean, whatever's easiest for me to do with the least amount of work. So if I can generalize a group of people, or I can blame, it's like saying, okay, if a white cop shoots a black person, all white cops are bad. Okay?
Exactly.
It's the same mentality. If I can say, okay, this one Israeli soldier or this one Israeli commander led a raid against a suspected terrorist Hamas hold, and there was collateral damage, which were children. So now the whole Jewish race needs to be eradicated. That is straight ignorance. You cannot make these kind of statements. And here's the other thing. What problem are you going to solve? Let's do a severe what if just for a moment. A severe what if. Okay? Let's say that whoever it is, you eradicate an entire race of people. Then what? Is there going to be peace then? Let's think about, okay, to these people who are calling it the Free Palestine and Intifada and all this other stuff. Okay, so is that going to solve our problem if we eradicate a whole race of people? Think about the logic of your statement. No, because then we turn to what? We'll turn to another group of people who has wronged us. We will turn to another group of people who, okay, now, well, let's go back to death to America. We got rid of those nasty, quote unquote, nasty Jews. Now we're going to move to America. Death to white people. Okay, now we eradicate all white people. Okay, now, then it's the blacks. Well, let's eradicate all the blacks. And then on and on and on and on and on and on.
And it doesn't matter the race. It's
no.
That ideology is true all across the board. it's and we'll use this issue as because we're talking about it. It's the same ideology of we need to kill all the Palestinians, and that's going to solve all the issues in the Middle East.
Exactly.
That is only, and history will tell you that mentality only makes things worse, and it's just cruel and it's inhumane, and it makes no goddamn sense.
And we need to go on we do need to go on the record as saying we do not. I don't know. But I'm sure you guys are with me. You know what's going on right now is terrible. What's going on in Palestine is terrible. What's going on in Gaza is terrible. And you know when Netanyahu says, okay, well, the way we're going to solve this problem, and we had this discussion a few weeks ago, but the way we're going to eliminate Hamas, and by doing that, we just need to go into Gaza and clean house. And I think we brought this point up, but I'll bring it up again. What you're doing now, if you eliminate, you could, it's possible you could eliminate Hamas in the short term, all right? But in the process of doing so, what are you going in and doing while you're doing this? You're going in and you're destroying homes, you're destroying families, you're destroying businesses, you're destroying schools, hospitals, and there are young eyes like, like our children, or there are children who are seeing this happen. And this is where trauma gets rooted at. This is where anger gets rooted at. And these kids see this from a young age, and this is planting a new seed. So your action that you're doing right now by going in and eliminating this and doing this, you're planting a new seed. So you're not, again, I challenge people to think, okay, you could say, let's eliminate Hamas or let's eliminate this, but you're not eliminating the problem, you're perpetuating it.
Well, if we want to go into the war for a quick second, I think how the Israelis are going about it is a little wrong. They're missing the mark on, I'm going to reference, so Jocko recently, he did a podcast talking about it, and they asked him, like, how would you do this if you were Israel? And I thought he had the most common sense, like, well thought out solution to this problem where, yes, Israel has the right to defend itself. It is going to go in and utilize it. It's going to eliminate its attackers. Cool. How you do this, though, is not how they're doing it. How you do this is you have to be better than the people you were trying to get rid of. Mm-hmm. And you need to take care of those innocent people. You need to show them that, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to give you a better life. We're here to give you all the humanitarian aid that you need. Right. We are here for them, not you. And you need to go above and beyond and help those people. It's a psyop. It's more than just going in, boots on the ground, and shooting at the bad guys. It's an entire operation. There's a lot of psychological warfare that has to go into it. It's a very complex issue. And it seems like they are missing the mark on that. And it seems like they're repeating a lot of the same mistakes that the U.S. military unfortunately made in the global war on terror. Mm-hmm. And to Biden's, I'll give Biden a little credit here. And, he's probably echoing someone else's words in his chamber. He had mentioned, I think it was in one of his speeches where he was kind of like, we don't want them to make the same mistakes that we made on the global war on terror. I want to say he said that in one of his speeches when he was talking with Netanyahu about advising them on what they recommend that they do. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was a Biden speech where he's like, look, we're trying to work with them and make sure they don't repeat the same mistakes we did and they do it the right way. Is that actually happening? Yeah. I'm not there to see it, but I mean, from the stuff I see on social media, it's just tragic on both sides. It's a war is hell. Right. And
and I want to reel this back in just a little bit. We had to discuss that point of it, but I want to get back into this part of the thing about with speech as far as speech is concerned. And so we mentioned this.
Yeah, sorry. Get off topic.
No, that's fine. That's what we do. It's okay. But so let's get back to this thing about the speech part of this. So as we said earlier, so on Tuesday then, that was when the testimony was. Wednesday, so I forgot what this lady's first name is, but President McGill, who is the president of Penn, releases a video statement. This is about 2 minutes. I'll play this real quick, and then we'll kind of finish up with her comments here, and we'll go from there.
There was a moment during yesterday's congressional hearing on anti-Semitism when I was asked if a call for the genocide of Jewish people on our campus would violate our policies. In that moment, I was focused on our university's longstanding policies aligned with the US Constitution, which say that speech alone is not punishable. I was not focused on, but I should have been, the irrefutable fact that a call for genocide of Jewish people is a call for some of the most terrible violence human beings can perpetrate. It's evil, plain and simple. I want to be clear. A call for genocide of Jewish people is threatening, deeply so. It is intentionally meant to terrify a people who have been subjected to pogroms and hatred for centuries and were the victims of mass genocide in the Holocaust. In my view, it would be harassment or intimidation. For decades, under multiple Penn presidents and consistent with most universities, Penn's policies have been guided by the Constitution and the law. In today's world, where we are seeing signs of hate proliferating across our campus and our world in a way not seen in years, these policies need to be clarified and evaluated. Penn must initiate a serious and careful look at our policies, and Provost Jackson and I will immediately convene a process to do so. As president, I'm committed to a safe, secure, and supportive environment so all members of our community can thrive. We can and we will get this right. Thank you.
So there you go. And that was Wednesday. So then Friday, then she steps down, and you get what Liz Magill steps down, and then so Scott Bach, who is the chairman of the board of trustees, basically the board of trustees say that she needs to. He resigned. Scott Bach, who was the chairman of the board of trustees, he resigned immediately because of her ignorance. And what he said was, I want to read this statement that he made, the guy who's the head of the board of trustees. He said, former President Liz Magill last week made a very unfortunate misstep. I love how they use that word, misstep. But the misstep...
It's always funny how they word that
right,
stuff.
Consistent with that of two peer university leaders sitting alongside her after 5 hours of aggressive questioning before a congressional committee, said the outgoing chairman of the board of trustees at the University of Pennsylvania. Following that, it became clear that her position was no longer tenable, and she and I concurrently decided that it was time for her to exit. She's not in the slightest bit anti-Semitic. Working along with her was one of the greatest pleasures of my life, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So why couldn't that statement she said there, which and I do understand that we're taking a 30-second blurb out of a 5-hour testimony, and we're taking and I'm sure it was psychologically demanding.
Are you accusing us of clickbait? Is that what you're saying this podcast has resorted to?
Yeah. No, not at all. But I do think that in that moment, which is what we've been saying all along, in that moment, you still, yes, it's a violation of personal, you can look back over the history of freedom of speech cases that you have, that you can look at. There are things that are done in the name of speech that are detestable but are allowed. Okay? I can say the burning of American flag. Okay? Protected. Kneeling during the national anthem. Protected. Okay? to be able to say, when we established what was called, the clear and present danger rule. Okay, when your speech or when your actions create a clear and present danger, that's when you cross the line. But everything up until that, even I think there was a case. The case of was Cohen versus California in 1980. Profane speech is protected. Okay, obscene speech is protected to a point. Okay, but even some kind of hate speech is protected. But the moment what the court has said time and time again, when you cross that line of saying, let's get it into action.
Yeah, that's my question for you, V. So with freedom of speech, I can say, I hate these group of people. I cannot say, I hate these group of people. I want them all to die.
That's where you've crossed the line.
That's the distinction we're talking about here.
I mean, over the last 70 years, 80 years, you've seen Klan marches in Washington, D.C. You've seen you've seen right to life marches. You've seen pro-choice marches. You've seen, we can go back to January the 6th. When President Trump, and that was, that's what a lot of these cases are looking at right now. And I may open a can of worms when I say this, but I'll go ahead and say this. When you say Trump had every right to go on the ellipse and make his speech about, I think the election was stolen, there were irregularities, there were issues, there were problems. He has every right to say that, even though, whoever proved whatever. We're not going to get into that. But the moment, and I think what every one of these cases are going to have, what they're going to have to prove in these cases against Trump is that, okay, did in fact his words then, was there any point in any of his speeches that he said, when he said, okay, we're going to march up there and demand what's right. Okay. Now, you want to talk about a razor thin line, Travis. There's that razor thin line right there. Okay. So then does that constitute then, because he didn't say, let's go up there and demand what's right by breaking in the front door and storming the Capitol. Okay. So you've got that razor thin line of what you can say. And speech is one of those. I mean, it just comes down to where you can say, okay, what is speech and what is not speech? When actions, and but then there's been other times where the court has said, okay, actions still act as speech. For example, if you look at campaign Citizens United, what's called the Citizens United case back in 2015, that campaign donations represent speech of organizations, and that Congress, in their attempt to try to regulate campaign donations, is a restriction of free speech. So there's a case in where you can say, okay, the speech in the form of, of that, even though it's going into action, doesn't violate, it's still protected speech. If I'm going to burn a flag and I set that flag on fire okay, that's still, but the moment I take that flag and I'm going to try to shove it in a police officer's face and light it on fire, then I've crossed the line. It's a razor thin line.
It's a razor thin line, and some people forget that just because a view is opposing to you doesn't mean that it's. I see it too with, I don't want to stretch it here, but conservatives will be upset when the woke ideology makes a statement where it's, they have the freedom to say that and have that opinion, but they think they should be canceled for what they're saying. And it's like, no, it goes both ways here. Right. Whether you agree with it or not, that is freedom of speech, and love it or hate it. whether you agree with it or not, the moment you try to censor it, you're doing the very thing you say you're against. And I see it both ways. Yeah, it's a razor thin line, and it's a very. I think we're going to be seeing more of these issues come up. I don't think this is the first.
No.
I think this is going to be a hot topic for the next 5 to 10 years. I really do, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see the way this plays out, given what we've seen in Canada, given what we've seen in Australia, some of these Western countries. We're starting to see the change happen. This is something that needs to be paid attention to. I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. It's interesting. I'm something we should all be watching.
I agree, and I do think that it's sad that it has come to this, and you mentioned opposing view sides. Any more opposing view sides? Now we're talking in, what's the word that I say, that we're talking in absolute definition. You're either this or this. You're either here or here. And if you're here, you're wrong. If you're here, you're wrong.
It goes into that generalizations thing. It falls in the same category. I feel like it's
not being able to have a reasonable. It's when you speak in terms of absolutes, that's dangerous. When I make a statement that says it has to be this way. You have to accept it this way.
Only the Sith steal it.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Man, that hit my head just as I said it, and that's weird because that hit my head, and as I said it, and then you said it, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute!"
Yeah, people listening to this would be like, "These guys had a great point, but they were just a bunch of fucking nerds."
Yeah, Obi-Wan tried to warn us. Damn it!
Mm-hmm. God, Obi-Wan knew that this war was going to happen, and only he could have prevented it. But we should send Ewan McGregor to the front lines of this war to settle the differences between Hamas and the Israelis.
Oh, man.
If anyone can resolve it, it would be him.
And the whole time I'm saying,
he would just like, you do not want to eradicate the Jews. You do not want to wipe out the rest of Palestine.
You want to go home and rethink your life.
Yes.
That was so God, I'm stupid. I was just like, man, this sounds familiar. What is it? And then you said it right then. I was like, oh God, point of embarrassment right there. Oh
no, it was funny because I was thinking it, and I saw Travis's eyebrows perk up because I knew that he had the same.
And then I thought I was like, wait a minute, this is Star Wars. God, I'm a nerd, such a nerd.
Everything comes back to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Just like literally there's a war going on Tatooine right now where a bunch of rebels are fighting against the Empire, and everything is Star Wars at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh. Moment of realization. That's when you know that we've reached the end of the show.
Yeah, we came full circle, I think. Well,
full really, circle. We started at
symbiont circle. There you go.
At the Phantom Menace, and we ended up right at Return of the Jedi.
Oh, and get to see the beautiful child as we're at it too. So.
Yeah, there she is.
There she. Oh no! Oh, that's not looking good. We better end before she blows up.
Probably already did.
Oh my goodness gracious! All right, well, on behalf of Sean and myself and Travis, we thank you guys for joining us. We have one more week, and boys, by the way, we're on episode 33. We're getting close to the end of season 3, coming close. Got about 4 or 5 more weeks, and then we'll be at the end of season 3. We'll have to do something special, party it up Vlotnik style or something. So,
when how many weeks are we away from it?
33, so 52. Well, we're about so 2 months, something like that. Yeah, we're getting close.
Maybe I can come out or something.
We'll have to figure out something.
I'm thinking. We'll figure it out.
Yep. But until next time, as Sean always says, as he's trying to get his baby to calm down there, be a friend, tell a friend, share with a friend, and we'll see you all next time on The Voice of Reason. Thanks for joining us today.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.